Hey besties, welcome in. I'm Sabrina, for those of you who don't know me yet, and this is Sabrina Reads and Roams, where I mostly read, I sometimes roam, aka I go on business trips that are not glamorous whatsoever, and occasionally I do both at the same time. I am so glad you're here because I upload new videos every single week, and this week I have for you my May reading review, recap, whatever you want to call that. We're gonna go over what I read in the month of May, which literally just ended like yesterday-ish. If I look tired, it's because I am. I just got home from my birthday trip yesterday, which I guess technically was June 1st, but you know, like when you're on vacation and the month rolls over, it's kind of just still the same month as it previously was. Does any of that make sense? Maybe I'm just rambling. Okay, so let's just get to the books that I read in the month of May. How about that, okay? Starting us off strong, I listened to, which is also still reading, Recursion by Blake Crouch. I listened to that on audiobook. You guys, let me tell you what I wrote in my review for this, because I think that's probably the most telling thing. I said, what was that ending? I need a few more words. Just how are you gonna leave me like that? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And you know, I thoroughly enjoyed the journey that this book took us on and the recursive nature of the storyline in general. So it was, for me, it was a really, really good listen. It was such a good way to start the month off. And I think I remember I either finished this on like May 1st or May 2nd. And I was just like, how can I wait an entire month to talk about this book? Because it was that freaking good. So in this book, there is a scientist who creates a device that lets you hang on to your memories, relive your memories. And as you can imagine, when something like this is created, it maybe falls into the hands of the wrong people. And basically how it works is it lets you kind of like jump back into your memory and things go awry from there. I don't want to, like, if I say too much more, it's going to give away like the whole book, but like, just, you can imagine, like, it's a sci-fi, that's what happens with the device. And it becomes recursive, like the story becomes recursive. So it being called Recursion is very, very appropriate. So it was a wild ride and I very much enjoyed it. And for me, I think whenever I'm listening to sci-fi, dealing with anything that has to do with like maybe like time travel or anything in that kind of realm, I'm immediately drawn into the story because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how does it work with this? And I think of every little instance of thing that happens, if we're time traveling and someone sees us, like, are they going to have that memory now? We've like created a new timeline. So, you know, the Marvel stuff with like the time variance authority and all that stuff, like I am immediately in there, like 100%. Okay. So Recursion for me was amazing. I gave it a 4.5 stars. And the only reason I didn't give it a 5-star is because I just wanted there to be a little bit more of a nice, cozy wrap up at the end. And I just didn't get that, which is like, I don't know that it needed to have that, but for me, I wanted it. So it was a 4.5 stars because of that reason and that reason alone. I just realized I'm not wearing any of my rings today. That's crazy. That's how you know I'm tired. I didn't put on any of my rings today. Okay, anyway. Then from there, I moved on to A Vicious Game. If you're wondering what I have in my hand, these are the slips from my TBR jar. When I pull out a book to read, I pull out the thing. So this is the stack. It's in order. It's reminding me the order of which I've read books. So anyway, so then I read A Vicious Game, book number 3 in the Halfling Saga by Melissa Blair. You guys have heard me, if you are not new to this channel, you guys have heard me talk about this series like ad nauseum. It's probably been featured in like 5 or 6 videos at this point because I was so enthralled by this. It was a great library find for me. And the problem is that the library took a little bit too long to get me the books 2, 3, 4 in the series. And so I already knew that I wanted to have it on my shelf as a shelf trophy anyway, because the first book was so good for me, that I just did what I do. And I went and I bought the rest of the series to have on my shelf. And honestly, no regrets. No regrets, okay? I know, use the library, consumerism, overconsumption. I know, I get it, I hear you. It takes all kinds though, okay? So if I ended up not liking these or loving these, they would have gone to a little free library and that would have been okay. Somebody has to donate books to the LFL, right? So why not be me? I would say, like, in my meager defense, the thing is when I buy books, I'm gonna read the books. So they're not just to be pretty on the shelf. Anyway, I digress. So A Vicious Game was book number 3. I don't want to really say too much about the story in this one because it is book number 3, but just the story in general is a typical fantasy. So we have the fae and the elves and the humans. A human has come in and somehow, some way, in all of his humanness, has taken over the Fae lands from the Fae who have magical powers. I'll never quite understand how that works. And to me, it's kind of the same concept. Like, you just have to use like suspension of disbelief because it's kind of the same concept as like the 19-year-old girls who are in charge of saving the world. And I will say, this is the thing that I've said all along throughout the series, the thing that I like so much about this series is that our lead female character is not 19, 20, 21 years old. She is 60 human years. She's Faye. She's 60 human years. So she's lived a life. She has life experience. And I can kind of believe that she is someone who we would trust to save the world. Okay, so that is the thing that I love about this series. Book 3 for me was just as good as book 1 and 2. I rated a 4.5 stars. And that's all I'm going to say about this book because I don't want to give away the whole saga. But yes, that was my first physical read of May. Then I read A Door in the Dark. This one, I read it on my Kindle. I believe it's on KU. So that for me was a surprising find. I don't even know how I came across this. It just was on my radar somewhere. So, A Door in the Dark is a dark academia. The way that magic works in this world is that you kind of have to like store up like the ability to use magic. Of course, there are the haves and the have-nots, and of course our female main character is a have-not. And so she has kind of a sordid history with some of the haves in the world, and in their schooling they are tasked with kind of like completing school and then getting an internship with one of the like founding families of the world in order to like better themselves in life. And so we see our female main character kind of going through the motions of being in school and like not being one of the top like popular chosen people, although her bestie is. And at some point some things go awry. There's a spell being cast at like what they call the waxways, which is how you can like kind of like teleport in the world. And so a spell goes awry in the waxways, and her and everybody else who are in the room end up in a place that they did not anticipate ending up in. They're in the middle of the wilderness. They have no survival skills or tools, basically. And from there, things start getting cray-cray. This is a fantasy thriller mashup, and I will say the one thing for me is that I continuously forgot that it was a thriller. So I was actually genuinely surprised at a lot of the like twists and turns where like if you remember while you're reading that it's a thriller mashup, like you probably wouldn't be that shocked by it, but because the fantasy part was so good or so well done, I just kept forgetting that it was also a thriller. So I was like, oh my god, at like a bunch of different points. So for me, the twists and turns really made the book. The fantasy, it had a unique magic system, but it was the twists and turns that really did it for me. Especially that little twist at the end. I mean, diabolical. Diabolical. So I can't wait to get to book number 2 in this series, which I did purchase already. I just haven't gotten to it yet because May was a very busy month and June is slammed. Okay, so maybe in July, but I really am heavily anticipating reading book 2 of this series. And shout out because the author of this book is a local author. He is a North Carolinian. So big ups to that. I believe did I read correctly? He's a middle school teacher, or was a middle school teacher in North Carolina. So, you know, hey. So for A Door in the Dark, I rated it 4.75 stars. It was right there, right there. I think I'm not a huge thriller person, so for me, if it would have been pure fantasy, it probably would have made it to 5 stars, but like, I don't know. I don't know if that even makes sense. In my head, it makes sense. The thriller aspect was done really well. I'm not a thriller reader, so it didn't reach like a 5-star for me. Let me know if you're following that. It may just be me being very confusing, but that's how I rated it. All right, so after that, I read The Women on Kindle, and this was a Libby pick. So I'm dumb. You know, I was just like, oh, for A Door in the Dark, I think it was on KU. I literally wrote on the slip for A Door in the Dark that it was on KU. Okay, anyway. So I read The Women, and this was a Kindle book. I checked it out from Libby, so go libraries, okay? The Women. I'm sure most of you already know what The Women is about, but in case you don't, briefly, it follows a woman who was a nurse in serving in the Vietnam War, and kind of like her decision to enlist and making it over to Vietnam, her time spent in Vietnam, and then what happens to her afterwards. For those of you who may not be American or just are unaware of the Vietnam War and what happened, the returning soldiers were treated very poorly in the country. Greatly, it was felt that it was a war we should have never been involved in, and that it was very unjust. And so, for whatever reason, the greater society just chose to kind of take that out on the people the men who served in the war. Women who served in the war were basically treated as if they did not serve in the war. So there's a lot of kind of like vitriol towards that and towards the men, and then the women who served in the war, even by the men who served in the war, the women were still treated as though they were not there, and that their service counts for nothing, and that they have no right to be a part of any veterans activities. So that is kind of what this is about. And the story follows Frankie and kind of her like situation. There's some love interests that happen in the story. There's some really huge plot twists that happen in the story. For me, when I read this book, I was expecting, because everybody had told me that this is such an emotional journey. Like, it is like high emotionality, like there's crying that's going to be happening. It's going to just like take you over the edge. I read this in my May like weekly read with me vlog, and if you watch that vlog, you'll know that like I didn't really feel like a high level of emotion while I was reading it. I mean, I felt emotions, but they weren't high enough to make me cry. And then, my friends, I got to the last 10 pages of the book, and all of a sudden, I could not keep it together. I think I was doing an immediate recap at the end of that book, and I was talking through my feelings on it. And as I was talking through my feelings, I got choked up and started crying. Like, that's not one of those, like, oh my God, I'm crying, let me turn my camera on moments. Like, I genuinely was fine, and then I was reflecting on it, and I just started crying. Like, yeah. So Kristen Hanna knew what she was doing when she wrote this, and I don't disagree with anybody. This was a very high emotional book. I gave that a 4.75. I mean, phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I like the way that Frankie's journey ended. I'm here for Kristen Hanna. That's the first actual Kristen Hanna book that I've read. I did watch Firefly Lane on Netflix, and I had all the emotions going through that. But that's the first book of hers that I read. So listen, and I ended up buying another one of her books. So yeah, I'm in it for Kristen Hanna. Okay, excellent. All right. Then I read An Honored Vow. Okay, you guys, it's the 4th book in the Halfling saga. I have finally finished this saga. Okay, An Honored Vow did everything that it needed to do. It did everything that it needed to do for me. Yeah, listen, the series was wrapped up really, really well. Again, I'm not going to go into the story and the plot points and all those things. I think I also read this one in that vlog with The Women. But it was wrapped up very well, and it was well written, and Melissa Blair did her thing. I would not mind getting a like reunion special from this gang, right? I mean, there doesn't need to be more to the story, but I wouldn't mind there being more to the story. Like, I want to know like what's happening years in the future, 100, 1,000 years in the future. What is happening to them? How have they moved on from the war? Like all those things, right? So yeah, there's not a whole lot more that I can say that won't be just like giving away the plot. So I will just leave it at that and say that I gave An Honored Vow itself 4 stars, and the series on whole was a 4.5 stars. So go read this. Please go read this. And it probably means a whole lot that I put down A Vicious Game and immediately picked up An Honored Vow with no thought to having anything in between the two of them. You know, like that was where I was at on that. Okay, besties, best friends. Okay, so after that, you hear me? Do you hear me? Kennedy Ryan. Can't get enough. This is Hendrix Berry's story, and I know you guys know, Kennedy Ryan is my girl. Like, okay? And of the Skyland series, from book 1, I have always felt like connected to, related to Hendrix. She's always been like in the background, but I'm like, that's me. She's me. I'm her. Hendrix got her own book now. Kendrix, that's like Kennedy Ryan and Hendrix. Hendrix got her own book now, and it was everything. It was glorious. Now listen, I want to tell you something. This is the 3rd in an interconnected standalone series, okay? So it's not really giving away anything to tell you that she's one of 3 women in a friend group. They're in Atlanta. Hendrix she's like a celebrity talent manager. She got her bag, right? That's the bottom line. She got her own bag. She does her own thing. She's very sexually liberated, very independent. Like, all of these things are me. The book itself is a romance. It is a celebration of Black women, Black independent women. And one thing that I loved about this book is there's a passage where someone says, like, you know, all of what Hendrix has going on and everything that's attributed to her, or maybe it was about another character. Anyway, they're talking about a Black woman. They're saying everything that she has going on and everything. It's like an indicator of Black girl magic. And the thing that comes out of it is that it's not. There is not Black girl magic. This is Black girl hard work, okay? So her success is attributed to her Black girl hard work. And you're not going to diminish that by just saying it's magic. Like, and that to me is kind of funny because people like all my life are like, oh, Sabrina, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And I'm like, baby girl, I don't have any powers. If I did, we wouldn't be in whatever situation we're in right now, right? Because I would just abracadabra and whatever. So like, I kind of relate to that kind of like that sentiment of like, no, this is not magic. This is me. But anyway, there's immaculate female friendships in here. There's a billionaire boyfriend. And let me tell you, this was billionaire boyfriend done right. Because that's the thing is Hendrix has her own bag. So she doesn't need a billionaire boyfriend. A lot of times when you see a billionaire boyfriend story, the billionaire boyfriend is like coming to save the girl from like destitute poverty. And then she starts making these weird choices where she's like, I don't need a man. I'm like, girl, but he has money. You need his money. Hendrix doesn't need his money. Yes, he has a lot more money than she does, but she doesn't need more money. She had good amounts of money on her own. So to me, it makes sense that she is not just immediately going to dive into bed with this billionaire. So anyway, so this, it has everything in it. Romance, billionaire boyfriend, Black girl excellence, Black woman excellence, I should say. It deals with hard stuff, social justice things, racism. It's all in this book, and it's beautiful. I don't have anything bad to say about Kennedy Ryan. I mean, hey, I'm going to go see her in like a week so she can sign it for me. If this one is unsigned, but I'm about to get it signed, y'all. That is that, and you can bet that I gave this a 5-star. Then I took a little bit of a detour. I was supposed to read Tenderly I Am Devoured. However, I didn't. I didn't feel like I had time to film that plus the other vlog that I was already filming. So instead of that, I read A Name in the Embers, which is a different arc that I was reading for review, but that I didn't need to film. So I read A Name in the Embers. It's an urban fantasy. It's grumpy sunshine. There's definitely just one bed at multiple points in the story. And essentially she is wanted by the Fae. She's a human. She's unaware that there are Fae. And then the guy that kidnaps her obviously becomes the love interest and yada, yada, yada. So that was the general story of the book. Listen, did I have a good time reading it? Sure. Was it a little bit unbelievable? Yes. I think, let me just tell you what I wrote in my review. I said it was a good middle of the road fantasy. Listen, were there plot holes? Yes. Did I steer right around them to get to the end? Also, yes. I had a good time reading this book, and that's what's important here. By the end, I was all the way invested in the romance and even got a little emotionally caught up in the idea that the romance might not work out. I'll just leave it there to avoid any spoilers. That's what I wrote in my review. And I mean, I gave it a 3-star. Again, I don't think I could have said it better than how I said it in the actual written review. Which reminds me, I need to transfer that review from Goodreads to Amazon. But anyway, so that was A Name in the Embers. After which, I listened to the Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells. So in this story, a woman returns to her hometown in the mountains somewhere. I'm guessing Appalachia. I don't know if they told us it was Appalachia, but it very much gave Appalachia. And there's some magical realism going on where like the women in her family own a spell book and the spells kind of like rule everything in the town, but their family's also a little bit outcast. So there's a lot of family dynamic going on in the story. The women of her family their relationships are very storied and very tense, and that kind of unravels throughout the course of the book. There's also a love story going on, and a lot of that love story is he or isn't he real? It was a lovely read. I thought it was going to end differently from how it did end, but I was pleasantly surprised by it, and I ultimately ended up giving it a 3.75 stars. I don't know, there wasn't like a whole lot to say about it, but it was good. That was a suggestion, I think, from Audible based on my previous listens. So, the thing about the Amazon ecosphere is it works for me. I get a lot of suggestions of things that I like from it, and I do appreciate that. If you're gonna mine my data, can you at least make it useful to me? Okay. And then on my birthday trip that I just got back from, the husband and I listened to Empire of Silence. Christopher Rocchio, yes, okay? The book was funny. I don't think I thought it was going to be funny, but it was funny. I've heard from so many different like YouTubers, reviewers, that the Sun Eater series is like god tier, okay? And I am very close to co-signing that based off of just the first book. I feel like I need to read like 1 or 2 more before I say that it's god tier. But Hadrian is a fucking child, and I'm here for it. So in this book, it's no secret that Hadrian, the main character, I think he eats literally eats a star. I haven't gotten that far yet. And kind of like destroys the galaxy, the world. I don't know. And so he is recounting his life and how he came to be the Sun Eater. And so in book 1, we're getting kind of like, we're getting our grounding, we're getting our world building, we're getting like the beginning, like the villain origin story. And it's funny because what I've heard from so many reviewers is that, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And my husband looked at me probably like 30% of the way through the book and he said, is he a good guy or is he like the villain? And I'm like, that I think is the question that we're trying to figure out. And I think that's what makes it so good, because it feels like a villain origin story, right? Because he's making choices and you're like, bro. But then you also can see like where he came from, like how he got to these decisions that he's making. Like it's building up, it's making sense. You're like, No, I mean, I can see why you would do that. Like, that was a bad decision, but I can see why you would make that decision. Like, it makes sense to me. So, this was a very long listen. I think it was like 30 something hours. Maybe, is that right? I don't know. Maybe like 25 hours, something like that. But it was a good one. We drove from North Carolina to New Orleans and back, and we listened to it. I have nothing bad to say about this. Even the fact that Hadrian is childlike. He behaves like a child in a lot of instances. He makes decisions and you're like, bro. And he like constantly is getting to a point where you're like, pull it back in, pull it back in. And he's like, no, I'm going to be impulsive and I'm going to cross the line. And he gets himself into a situation. I rated this 4.5 stars. Hear me out, besties. Here's the reason why I didn't get 5 stars. Because there is a plot point that was left unresolved and I don't like that. I don't like that. I need an answer, and it may be answered in future books, but it was left unresolved and I tried to get over it, and then Hadrian himself brought it back around later on in the book, and still we didn't get a resolution. So because I can't stop thinking about that part of it and I really need to know the answer, 4.5 stars. But like, it's impeccable, and I love Hadrian the character, even though he behaves like a child. And then my last book for the month of May, number 10, was Birthday Girl by Miss Penelope Douglas. Now listen, filthy. The book is about a girl, and it starts on her birthday, and then we kind of come back around to her birthday in like another instance or whatever. And it's fast moving. Like, I don't think I realized that we were like only like 2 weeks down the road when we're really getting into this. And basically, essentially what happens is her boyfriend's kind of a douche. And everyone else in her life basically is too. She ends up getting evicted because her boyfriend like threw her a birthday party without her being there, and he got them evicted. And so the only place for them to go live is with her boyfriend's dad. And I bet you can guess where this is going. They start feeling things for each other. And then it's a back and forth of like, oh, that's my son's girlfriend, or my son's, you know, whatever. And she's like, oh, that's my boyfriend's dad. I shouldn't be thinking about him like this. It gets filthy. I mean, there are shower scenes in here. There's scenes out at the pool. And, you know, I don't think I need to tell you, but eventually they have to give in to temptation. So, Jordan Pike, filthy. I don't know what else to tell you. I picked it up because it's Birthday Girl. I very intentionally wanted to read this on my birthday trip this year, and I did it. If you like spicy, the spice scenes were decent. They weren't like unbelievable. You know the ones where the spice scene and then like someone has a leg that's like behind their back and like down, like it's draped over the shoulder, their own leg, and then it's like down to the, like, there weren't really scenes like that. There was one scene where I was like, wait a minute, how does that work? But for the most part, the spicy scenes were believable, and there was a good amount of tension. Some of the socio-emotional stuff wasn't really believable, but it's a book, y'all. It doesn't need to be 100% believable. It needs to be a good story, and I was along for the ride. I mean, I was along for the ride. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving this a 3-star. Now, just because a spicy story doesn't need to be believable doesn't mean that it can't be believable, okay? Point in case, Kennedy Ryan, spicy, believable. Birthday Girl, spicy, not really that believable, but that's okay. So I still had a good time reading it. So, you know, 3 stars, and if it's your birthday and you like spicy books, go ahead and read it. It'll probably be a good time for you. So those were my May reads, and I don't know. Did you read any of these books too? Did you have any thoughts on them? Are there any that you want to read? Please let me know, because I love talking to the camera, but it's actually a little bit more exciting. It's a lot more exciting if I have someone to talk to in the comments about these books that I have read for the month. Make sure that you like this video if you liked it, that you subscribe if you liked me and want to see more, and that you drop a comment down below so that I know you're here. If you don't want to have a conversation with me, you just want to say, hey, what's up, hello, you can drop any random emoji down there that you want to. I'm not gonna like keep you beholden to a specific emoji, but just drop one down there so I know that you're here. I'll just thumbs up it if you just drop a random emoji. I won't even like engage you in conversation. I'll just hit you with a thumbs up. Okay, how about that? That is our agreement with each other. Okay, so with all that said, thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next video.